The inhabitants of Novoholansk, a town in eastern Ukraine, have lived with war for the past 5 years. Many have moved away, yet children still live here.
When they are shooting, we go to the changing room in the kindergarten because it has no windows. We sit next to the lockers and wait for it to stop. We aren't supposed to pick up anything suspicious. It could explode and kill us.
Novoholansk is held by the Ukrainian military. The separatists are just 2 kilometers away. The two sides shoot at each other daily. In the first round for the presidential elections, a pro-Russian candidate received the most votes here. He didn't stand a chance at the national level, although even he wants the separatist areas to return to Ukraine. Pro-Russian is a relative term in the town of Donbass. Now most want to vote for Zelensky.
Things have to change. The politics have to change. Who would have thought 5 or 10 years ago that there could be a war here?
At least he's promised to end the war. That's what we are hoping for.
Many will have tuned into the election debate on Friday, which pitted the president against an inexperienced newcomer, and where substance was of little concern.
I am the result of your empty promises and failures, and you understand that very well. When you take a flight, would you get on the airplane if the pilot is still learning to fly? Would you put your life in the hands of a surgeon that comes into the operating theater to learn?
The war was a big topic at the debate. Both candidates fell to their knees on stage. In this election, honouring the victims of 5 years of conflict is part of the spectacle.
Joining us from the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, is DW correspondent Nick Connolly. Nick, President Poroshenko is under threat of losing his job to a politically unexperienced Volodymyr Zelensky. What are Zelensky's chances?
Well, they're looking very good. The last opinion polls we had are from last week. There's no polling allowed now in the run-up to the election, and that gave Zelensky about twice as much support as the incumbent Petro Poroshenko, about 70-30. And definitely speaking to people here where I am now in front of a polling station in a middle-class suburb of Kiev, you really get the sense that there is a lot of frustration with the incumbent president. People maybe not always saying that they want to vote for Zelensky specifically, but saying they need new faces, they want something new, and seemingly willing to take that risk, take that jump for someone who doesn't have experience of politics.
What have the candidates focused on in their election campaigns?
So Petro Poroshenko led a very defensive election campaign, basically portraying himself as the commander-in-chief of the army, the man who brought Ukraine back from the brink back in 2014 when that conflict we saw about in the report there in the Donbass threatened to extend to the rest of the country, saying that only he can stand up to Russia. And Zelensky was able to provide a slightly more positive picture, portraying himself as the face of a new generation, someone who would shake up the corruption that has made this one of Europe's poorest countries, and saying basically, trust me, I don't have any experience, but I can bring the people with the expertise into my team, and only by really starting from scratch can we change this country. That's his message, and it's one that seems to be doing very well.
Seems to be doing pretty well. What would a Zelensky win mean for Ukraine?
So this has been the consistent criticism of Zelensky, that he has been very light on the detail. His critics say he's promising all things to all people to try and maximize his appeal. But it doesn't seem to be doing him very much harm. He has in recent days been speaking to the press more, talking a bit more in detail on the big questions, joining NATO or the EU, for instance. He says he'll put it to the people, let them decide in referendums, and start with taking immunity away from members of parliament to try and fight corruption better. But the experts, there has been quite a lot of expert criticism that it is all kind of fuzzy. But this doesn't seem to be something that many Ukrainians are too concerned about. They seem so concerned about their economic position. Living standards are still lower now than they were before the war, that they're willing to take that risk and to vote for someone who has no track record and hasn't even been taking part in any elections before. But he is a face that everyone knows from TV. He's been all over Ukraine's show business for the last 10 years. So there is great familiarity. He doesn't need to explain who he is, and that seems to be really paying off for him.
Nick Connolly following the Ukrainian presidential elections for us in Kiev. Thank you.